Alright, so about 3 weeks ago, I heard a bunch of screaming next door, and I didn't know what was going on, so I kind of walked outside and walked in front of the porch, and I heard the screaming even louder, so I kind of wanted to know what it was, so I kind of knocked on the window, and then all of a sudden the screaming stopped. I stayed there for 5 to 6 minutes, and I didn't hear anything else, so I just kind of left, and 10 minutes later, I saw cops come in front of the house, and so it ended up to be that it was a domestic violence call, and that kind of pissed me off because I didn't know what was going on, so I didn't know what to do, and I kind of didn't know what to expect to kind of maybe even help the person. So I'm here to talk to you about domestic violence and how you can find out ways that you're kind of leading up to domestic violence and how to stop it. So according to helpguide.org, domestic violence and abuse are used for one purpose and one purpose only, to gain and maintain total control over you. An abuser doesn't play fair. Abusers use fear, guilt, shame, and intimidation to wear you down and keep you under his or her thumb. Your abuser may also threaten you, hurt you, or hurt those around you. So this kind of leads up to the signs about if you want to figure out if you're in a domestic violence. If you're thinking or you feel these questions, do you feel afraid of your partner much of the time? Do you avoid certain topics out of fear of angering your partner? Do you feel that you can't do anything right for your partner? Do you believe that you deserve to be hurt or mistreated? Do you wonder if you're the one who is crazy? Do you feel emotionally numb or helpless? Those are questions that if you answer yes to, you're obviously leading to domestic violence. You can also ask yourself about your partner's belittling behavior. You can ask yourself, does your partner humiliate or yell at you? Do they criticize you and put you down? Do they treat you so badly that you're embarrassed for your friends or family to see? Do you ignore or put them down, or put down your opinions or accomplishments? Do they blame you for their own abusive behavior? Do they see you as a property or a sex object rather than as a person? Also, those are signs that you're obviously not in a good relationship. You can also ask about your partner's violent behaviors or threats. Does your partner have a bad or unpredictable temper? Do they hurt you or threaten to hurt you or kill you? Do they threaten to take your children away from you or harm them? Do they threaten to commit suicide if you leave them? Do they force you to have sex? Do they destroy all your belongings? And that's an issue that you have to figure out, and domestic violence is something that comes from that. You can also ask yourself about your partner's controlling behavior. Does your partner act aggressively, jealous, or possessive? Do they control where you go or what you do? Do they keep you from seeing your friends or family? Do they limit your access to money and the phone or the car? Or do they constantly check up on you? Honestly, from my opinion, I think domestic violence usually comes more from jealousy and from not knowing what you're doing. They think that you're doing something bad, and that's what causes them to start abusing you and name calling you and hating you and stuff. So according to psychocentral.com, abusers use a variety of tactics to manipulate you and exert their power. They use dominance to dominate you. They use humiliation to put you down. They use isolation to try to get you to not get help from anybody. They threaten you to do things if you do tell someone. They intimidate you by telling you stuff that they're going to do to you, and they start denying and blaming everything they do on you. The cycle of violence and domestic abuse goes from abuse, guilt, excuses, normal behavior, fantasy and planning, and setup. They abuse you, then they feel guilty for what they do. They start making excuses for what they have done. They start acting normal and nothing has happened. They start fantasizing and planning how they're gonna hit you again, and they start setting up everything so they make it seem like you're the one who caused them to start hitting you and stuff. This leads me to a couple facts from the Domestic Violence Resource Center. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women between the ages of 15 and 44 in the U.S., more than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. 3 to 4 million women in the U.S. are beaten in their homes each year by their husbands, ex-husbands, or male lovers. 85% of domestic violence victims are women. 1 in 5 female high school students reports being physically and or sexually abused by a dating partner. 50% of the men who frequently assaulted their wives also frequently abuse their children. Police report that between 40 and 60% of the calls they receive, especially on the night shift, are from domestic violence calls. Over 70% of the women injured in domestic violence cases are injured after separation. So this doesn't just happen while you're married. This can also happen after you've divorced. So what to do after you're in a domestic violence situation? According to helpguide.org, if you suspect domestic violence or abuse, ask if something is wrong, they need help, and obviously by themselves they're not going to be able to do anything. Express concern, tell them you feel bad for what they're doing, what's happening, and express your concern about it. Listen and validate to whatever they have to tell you. Offer help. That is something that's really big. You need to help them in order for them to leave this. Support his or her decisions on whatever they do. Do not just wait for him or her to come to you. You have to come to them, or else they might be too afraid to come to you. Do not judge or blame. Do not pressure him or her to do anything they don't want to do. Give advice and place conditions on your support. Tell them you're going to help them out, but they have to try to help themselves out after all this stuff. So I think you can go to basically anybody after you've suffered from domestic violence. You can go to family members. You can go to organizations like the Women's Refugee, San Diego Domestic Violence Council, Domestic Violence Project of Santa Clara, or the Center for Domestic Violence Prevention. There's a lot of organizations out there that can help people with domestic violence. So remember that you never use domestic violence. It never solves anything. If you want to solve something, just talk it out. Thank you.
Yeah, 50 seconds left. So, 60 minutes right now.
All right, Priscilla, what did you think?
Well, your attention getter, I thought was really effective. It got my attention right away when he started with that story. And then he goes into the thesis statement. I think could use a little more his main claim. I feel like it's more, the speech is more informative about the issue than persuasive. I think that you could improve the organization of the speech if it wasn't so much just listing things. But I think he did give good eye contact and had good gestures. But I think that would have greatly, it would have greatly improved his speech if he didn't list as much. And it did get a little long for me, just a little bit. But overall, I think it was a pretty okay speech.
All right, well, you picked out some nice things that I thought were also true about the speech. I thought you did a very nice job delivering the speech. You have very good eye contact. You're speaking to us for the most part. You're engaging us. Sometimes you've just got kind of a quiet voice, and I think sometimes you need a little bit more energy and a little bit more projection, but it's not that there was a problem with hearing you. It's just I think that you would get the audience a little bit more involved if you have a more variety with that. But otherwise, I think all of the delivery things were really solid. I like the opening of the speech also. It was I was a little unclear at one point. You knocked on a window, and I'm trying to figure out what window are you knocking on. There's part of the story that's a little incomplete. And that's because I think you're just telling the story instead of trying to read something that you've all planned out, and you're just telling the story. And anytime people tell stories, they leave out bits and pieces, and because they know what happened, so it's very clear in their head what they're doing, but it's not always that clear to the audience.